Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Avocado Gamescast, the gaming podcast that we're still doing because somebody's listening to it. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of things that have come up in the games industry recently, namely EA's Game Changers program and Google's recently announced Stadia platform. And we're also going to talk about how they relate to broader shifts in the games industry. But before we get to that, let's introduce ourselves. My name's Merve, and joining me, he knows that Keikaku really means plan. It's Ben.
Morning.
He knows that Mithra is really Hikari. It's Wolfman Jew.
Here comes Wolfman Jew. He's a demon on wheels.
All right, then. She knows that Naruto is really just Boruto's dad. It's Lovely Bubs.
Hello. I'm so glad I got that one.
And finally, he knows that all this shit is really, really weeby. It's the Kappa.
For real, I have no idea what any of that is.
I only know half of that through osmosis. I've never seen the original Keikaku means plan thing. I've never watched a second of Naruto. The only thing I know firsthand is the whole Mithra Hikari thing from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Because that I've experienced firsthand. So how are you folks doing?
Good.
I've just woken up, so I'm managing.
Oh yeah, it's morning all the way in Australia.
I made sure I went to bed at a reasonable hour before midnight and shit last night for this.
Oh wow, that is dedication.
Yeah, that's something I've not been able to do for years.
Yeah, meanwhile I was playing Baba as You at 4 in the morning last night, which was stupid because it meant I woke up at noon today. So for those of you who don't know, Baba is You is a puzzle game that's on PC and Switch. And unlike a lot of other puzzle games where there's sort of a set of rules that govern the game's mechanics, the point of Baba is You is to manipulate the rules of the game to overcome obstacles and reach whatever goal you have to reach. So you might see a set of rules that say something like, wall is defeat. And that means if you touch the wall, then you die. But you can replace it with something like, wall is push. And that means you can push around the wall and push that obstacle out of the way. So, by manipulating these rule blocks and then manipulating the environment, you kind of get to where you need to go. It's an interesting set of puzzles. It's also stupidly difficult, but I've been enjoying it so far. Ben, you've been playing it as well, right?
Yeah, it's so hard. I was started up, played for about half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and I think the first 5 minutes was the first set of puzzles, and then I got to one puzzle and was just there for half an hour just staring at I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it took me... So when I was first starting out, I cleared the first 10 puzzles or so in an hour, and now each puzzle takes me about an hour to figure out.
Yeah, you go into a level and you just stare at it wait, what?
Yeah, and it's usually just one rule. It's usually just this one rule that you're forgetting how to exploit. And then it clicks an hour later, and you're like, why didn't I see that all along? So yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Such an amazingly cleverly designed game, and I kind of hate every moment I'm playing it.
Yeah, it's a brilliant game. It's also stupidly difficult. I probably won't be able to finish it, but I've enjoyed what I played so far. So I'd recommend it. For $15, you'll get.
Also, Baba is adorable. That has to be addressed.
Yeah, Baba is apparently so. Here's the pun in the title. Baba is a sheep. It's called Baba is You.
Oh!
I know, mind blown, right? Yeah.
Well, now I need to buy this game right now.
Yes. This game panders to all of my and Wolfman's personal fondnesses. Puns, puzzles.
Pixel art. Because that's part of it as well. It's pixely. It's lo-fi. I like it. I've enjoyed it. Wolfman, what have you been playing?
I've been playing I guess somewhat coincidentally, last time I was on here, I was near the end of Xenoblade Chronicles, and now I'm on here again, and I'm near the end of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the second sequel. It's, you've talked about it a lot back when you played it when it first came out, and kind of, I think I have a lot of the same feelings as you. It's an incredibly ambitious and massive world that's absolutely gorgeous, with some incredible environmental design, this sense of absolutely huge scale, some really awful character designs, and some
Yeah.
not super great gender politics, and a really interesting story about like racism and kind of humanity and what kind of life and identity mean that it doesn't really have a whole control on.
Yeah, I feel, without spoiling anything, I feel like it's that the story sort of gets away from it in the final act. But that's a whole other thing. What I will say though is that sort of the overlapping plot threads about sort of like racism, as you mentioned, exploitation of, like, it's essentially about exploitation of labor and the relationship between, I guess you could say, workers and employers. And on top of that, there's a whole this whole string about environmentalism and sort of the trade-offs between resource exploitation and one's future. You can almost see it as like a metaphor for global warming.
Yeah. It totally is a metaphor for global warming.
Yeah, except for imagine like putting society like 40 years into the future where we've kept doing the same things and done nothing to mitigate global warming, and we're on the verge of collapse, and then you have to reverse that.
Oh, so my adulthood?
Oh yeah. Sorry about that.
I forgive you.
It's a really, that is the kind of the one thing, is as many issues as it has, and I should note I am absolutely enjoying playing it. I'm at like the 117th or 18th hour or so.
Jesus.
It took me 120 hours, I think, to beat.
God.
Yeah. Like, it is something I respect a lot. Like, I enjoy it, but I'm also just like, wow, they actually did something this stupidly huge. But I kind of want to just, instead of kind of talking about that, I just kind of wanted to talk about kind of the one thing that I found really charming in this game, and also in the last game, is that it's a big RPG, monsters are in the overworld, and one of the appeals is that some of the monsters are huge, and alongside these monsters are kind of unique enemies they're called unique monsters, and they're basically optional bosses.
Yeah.
And they all and usually they're just kind of the like the model of the normal monster, but just larger.
Yeah.
But they all have hilariously amazing names. So I'm just going to name.
God, I don't remember any of the individual names, so I remember them all being awesome.
I'm going to give you 10 of these.
Okay. Let's hear
Excellent.
Autumn Shower Melvin, Epicurean Legia, Haywire Radcliffe. This one Lily knows. It's Machine Gun Julio.
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember Machine Gun Julio. Was that like the flying bird dickhole who I wanted to? He fucks you up because you kind of have to face him because he's like blocking the way. Yeah,
Well,
fuck
you
that
have to
guy.
run
Sorry, keep going.
But they chase you way further than they do it than the ones in the last game. That's one weird issue. Soul Eater Stanley, Pernicious Benf. That's, just to be clear, that's Pernicious Benf, Benf.
Okay.
Antecedent Gigi, Decapitator Marvin, Perplexed Storian, and Runaway Train Boole. And that doesn't count the DLC ones like Flying Fortress Desmore or Hand-Wringing Bigelow.
Those are fucking fantastic.
Decapitated Marvin, holy shit, that's
Marvin.
amazing.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
I mean, to be fair, if you've ever read the American comic strip Marvin, you're going to be thinking about the word decapitate a lot.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's Xenoblade 2. Some very odd design choices, and in some ways, those odd design choices become brilliant.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where it's just so funny that I don't care that it's weird. I just roll with it.
Yeah.
So Ben, what have you been playing Sekiro? I understand.
I've been playing a little bit of Sekiro, but I was actually going to talk about Devil May Cry 5 because I'm halfway through my second playthrough at the moment.
Okay, let's hear about Devil May Cry 5 because everybody else is playing Sekiro. They can play it for themselves. What have you been up to?
I'm going to try and go quickly on it because it's just two main things I want to touch. First, the game has really, really amazing environmental storytelling and highlights why they probably shouldn't do environmental storytelling in Devil May Cry. Because, okay, so the basic storyline of the game is this big tree sprouts up in the middle of a town, and it's like roots shooting out and killing everyone, and it leaves them like kind of like Pompeii-style husks all through the city. And so you like going through the city, and there'll be like there's like this bit, and there's like an ambulance, and there's like the husk of a dude at an ambulance. It was like the ambulance driver reaching out to like two people that are crawling on the ground, and they're like the husks and everything, and it's like very dramatic and somber and everything. And it's amazingly done, except you're playing Devil May Cry, so your character's like, fuck yeah, backflips, and it's just like being this huge idiot through this all, and it's like, you're a fucking sociopath, Nero. Like, there are hundreds of dead people around you, and you're just like, riding high, look at me do skateboard tricks on my sword, and it's just...
That makes me think of Gears of War, where you get to be just this fucking roided out football player rampaging through the most stupidly gorgeous, like, crumbled architecture surrounded by corpses.
Yeah.
The other Devil May Cry games have done, like, Devil May Cry 3 had Temenigu rise in the middle of a city, and so I'm guessing lots of people died in that, but you never see them. And, like, Devil May Cry 4 has, like, people getting killed in cutscenes and everything, but you're not, like wading through corpses and shit. But in this game you are, but you're still a Devil May Cry character, and it's just so fucking weird.
This feels inevitable though, right, Ben? Like, at some point, Devil May Cry had to go the dark and serious route.
Yeah, but it's like, there's actually a bit where you walk in, like, that bit with the ambulance and everything. There's a trigger, it's set up as you walk out of an alleyway and you have to see it. And there's a trigger to make Nero say a dumb line as soon as he walks out there. Like they had to know.
Yeah. If I may ask, how's the new guy?
V?
5 or V?
Better than I thought he'd be, but like, have anyone played Guilty Gear?
No, sorry.
There is a character in that, Zappa, named after Frank Zappa because fucking Guilty Gear, and he's like someone's pets and everything, and he plays a lot like that for any of our listeners that have played it. So like, it takes a while to get your head around, but after you get the hang of it, he is really, really cool and interesting. The only thing is, compared to the other characters, he's also a lot simpler. Like, there isn't as much variety in what you can do and like playing around with the combos and everything with him as there is with Dante or Nero, which is the other thing I wanted to touch on, because Dante is the most absurd character that's ever been put in a video game at this point. Like, not in terms of his personality and characteristics, which yes, but like, Devil May Cry has done this thing where every single game they add abilities to Dante, but they never take anything away. So he is overwhelmingly like complex to play as. He has 4 different ranged weapons. He has 4 different melee weapons. He has 4 different styles. 2 of those styles are modifiers for his ranged weapons and melee weapons. Some of his weapons have multiple stances that change their movesets. You can quickly swap between any of those combinations. I think I worked out there's like 20 different movesets that you can swap around at any one time. So like Merve, you're good at maths. How many combinations is that?
Okay, wait. So let me actually calculate this on the fly. So how many different?
He has 4 sets of guns.
4 sets of guns.
4 sets of swords.
4 sets of swords.
Gunslinger changes all his gun movesets.
Okay, so that's all right. So it's 8 times 4, 32. Okay, and
Swordslinger changes all his sword movesets.
Okay, so he has says 8 possible sort of weapons and then 8 possible ranged. So we're up to 64.
Okay, then he has Trickster and Royal Guard, which are another 2.
Are those ranged or are those?
Those are just a completely different set altogether.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so 66.
Then he has one set of his melee weapons can go between boxing and kicking, so that's another, like, it's 2 movesets in itself.
So 60. Okay, so that actually becomes 9 times 8, so it's 74 total now.
Wait. So why can't he just kick box?
He's cool.
Okay, so we're...
Oh, no, I hadn't finished yet.
Oh, no.
3 forms.
So each what has 3 forms, sorry?
The nunchuck weapon set he has 3 forms.
Okay, so now we're talking about actually, like, I guess 11 times 8, so 88, so 90 different.
Yeah. Oh, and also he has Sin Devil Trigger, which completely changes his moveset again.
Does that change both the range?
That changes everything altogether. That's a complete
Okay, so 180 different move sets.
God! So you're saying it's pretty accessible. Good entry point.
I'm pretty good at these games. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn or whatever, but like, I've played all the Devil May Cry claims. I played the Bayonetta games. I play them on like the hard difficulties and everything. I look at like high level Dante play, and it's just like, no, fuck off. Like that's absurd. You can't do this. Like, they need to fix Dante. They need to either get rid of him, which is actually what it seems like Itsuno said this is going to be the end of the Brothers of Sparta like story. So it looks like they're setting up Nero as the new main character and getting rid of Dante, or like just because it's crazy. Like,
can't they just like go back to reboot Pizza Dick Dante?
Can't they just like get him like do the thing where like Samus loses all her upgrades? Can't they just be like, okay, well Dante got kind of lazy over the past 10 years since Devil May Cry 4, and now he can't.
Just fucking
From all
Commander
the pizza.
Shepherd him.
like they have to do something, because like you get up, like you play through Nero and you play through V, and then you unlock Dante, and so it's like you get used to the systems and everything, and you still get to Dante, and you're like, what the fuck? And it's like he's so complex. You have to press every single button on the controller to do stuff. Like, changing styles is on the D-pad, and like so you have to like be able to like launch people by like targeting them, holding back attack, launch them, jump, knock them forward, then change with the D-pad to you teleport close to them, then while you're still in the air, change with the D-pad to gunslinger to do the like bullet rain thing, and it's just. And like, go and watch Dante combo videos on like Twitter and shit, and it's like, what? This is the most anime bullshit in the world.
Like, the only game I can think of where you like switch between movesets on the fly is like Yakuza 0 and Kiwami, where you're switching between the 3 different movesets. But that actually has like a delay, so you can't really chain together combos between the movesets.
If you want to play good as Dante, learn to chain combos between the movesets and like swap your weapons, and like it's absolutely absurd. And
Christ on a bike.
I'm just kind of imagining like if you started up Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta had all her weapons from Bayonetta 1, and the game is sort of assuming that you'll just chain all of them together at once in the middle of battle, which you can't really do in Bayonetta.
Yeah, not only it's like. So Bayonetta has all her weapons from Bayonetta 1, but also they're all available to you at any time and you don't need to pause. Like...
You know what? That actually sounds fun. I applaud them for making a game that is just like completely complex bullshit. Anything else you want to say about DMC5?
It's really fucking good.
All right. That's a ringing endorsement. Complicated and good. Bones, what have you been playing?
I'm so sorry for all my loud reactions to that.
That's all right.
I've been playing Super Mario Galaxy.
Oh, nice.
Whoop whoop.
It's very good. So basically, you have a central mechanic set that's relatively familiar to anyone who's even heard of the concept of a Mario. but
And then they add in
this-
weapon switching.
Yes. This time,
like
That's sort of like Odyssey, right? Where you like switch between captures.
yeah, but this time it comes from the fact that the baby Luma is now an edgy Luma teenager who's really into pizza dick.
Okay, so as much as I would love to live in that world, yeah, basically the central mechanic to add complexity to the jumping while also, making sure that you won't always fucking fall to your deaths. You have this spin jump mechanic, and honestly, like the one that you have in Odyssey is a slightly modified version of the one that was introduced in Galaxy. So if you've done that, then you know what it feels like, basically. Except that with this, you're shaking a Wii remote up and down to do it, which is personally I really love the sensation of it. It's very fun. And I'm about halfway through the game now. And the game just introduces a bunch of different like new gameplay quirks to add to the platforming, where there'll be these hook points scattered across a map that you have to point and pull yourself towards them, and then
So it's like a grappling hook almost?
in a chain. Yeah, it's a grappling hook. Yes, it's a
Okay.
grappling hook in the middle of space, and if you don't properly grapple yourself between each one, then you will fall to your death into the vacuum of space.
Because this is a game where when Mario dies, he dies.
Oh yeah. I can't be clear about this enough. Every single level has a fucking black hole at the center of the stage that you will fall into. You will spaghettify.
It's also there's the part where Mario drowns, like he gets buried alive in sand.
Yeah. You can also be eaten by a giant eel monster, because apparently the one in 64 wasn't scary enough.
Yeah, that one just like hits you and then you die.
Yes.
Okay, this one actually like gobbles you up.
Yes.
Just like spit out a Mario skeleton.
No.
But if you get electrocuted to death, you do get to see Mario's skeleton as he dies.
That's true. Yeah.
That's
No,
great.
That's the thing
Is
about
his hat
Galaxy.
like part of the skeleton?
I like that they seem to have like really focused down on the fact that like Mario isn't dying; he's suffering as he dies.
It's a very melancholy game.
Yeah.
some
No,
of the time.
I want to get into that a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Like the thing to understand about Galaxy is that it's going really hard to be the most cinematic and the most intense Mario. Like the opening sequence isn't just Bowser's floating onto the scene, he grabs Peach and he runs. Like that does happen, but the scale of it is it's a beautiful nighttime in the Mushroom Kingdom. There's a lovely festival of the stars falling from the sky, and then a massive airship swoops in, bombs the shit out of the entire Mushroom Kingdom, and steals Peach. And Peach is going to be used to create a new galaxy for Bowser to rule himself. It's
a little much.
It's a lot. Yeah, that sets the tone for this story of like, yeah, that you're sailing through the entire universe, exploring different star clusters, gathering fuel to rebuild your own spaceship, while you also learn this really sad story of this lady who's just the mom to all the star aliens. It's really good.
That's like the most narrative heavy I mean, aside from the Mario RPGs, obviously, it's like one of the most narrative heavy Mario games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And you have
And I'm
Yeah,
really glad they
one-
decided to steal all their good ideas from Sonic Adventure 2.
no comment.
Sonic Adventure 2, is that the one where Sonic kisses the human?
No,
No.
that
No,
was
that's Sonic 06. Sonic Adventure 2 is the one where the final levels are you're on a bunch of planetoids with their own gravity having to solve little problems and jumping between them and shit.
Oh, I remember that now. Yeah. Okay.
Sonic Adventure 2 was the one that introduced a big titty bat.
It
Yeah,
also-
yeah. Rouge.
It also most famously introduced Shadow the Hedgehog.
The second
Shut
most
it.
popular character in the canon.
Oh yeah, the one who says "damn."
Yeah.
Rollerblading fucking jet-powered boots. He's
Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one who saw Shadow's boots as rollerblading, because he's not walking, he's just sort of weirdly sliding, like he's...
They're like
Glide.
Yeah, he's
fucking
got
hover
the
boots or
boots
some
that
shit like that.
Yeah, he's got hover boots that like rollerblade. They're the same as the dude from Jupiter Ascending.
Oh shit! Does that mean like Shadow the Hedgehog invented Heelys?
Yeah. That's what happened when he got old and kind of like realized he needed to calm down a little bit.
Stop
And
shooting
that was
people.
that was after the first time he heroically sacrificed himself to save the universe, and the second time.
So we're on like the 5th incarnation of Shadow.
Technically, yes.
Actually,
Yeah.
Because
if
he
you
does-
really wanna
he
get
does
down to
die
it,
in Adventure
Sonic
2.
Forces, there's like 170 shadows.
Yeah.
There's an entire army of him.
God.
And well,
They're
that
like
also...
clones or what? You know what? Don't
They're
even explain it.
Graphic clone projections made by Infinite, who never actually gets explained in that game. It's fucking weird.
This, let me guess. It's like some accompanying graphic novel that explains all the Sonic lore that we need to understand.
As
No,
much as
because
Sorry,
we're really taking away from your story
it's
about
okay.
Mario.
Yeah, as much as I love Sonic lore, hijacking my fucking genuinely good Mario games.
I mean, to be fair, this wouldn't be the Gamescast if there wasn't a digression making fun of the Sonic franchise.
Of course.
It's our brand. Anything else you wanted to say about Super Mario Galaxy?
I'll save it for another time. When we have a less busy episode, I'll probably be talking about it again.
All right, sounds good. Kappa, what have you been playing?
I put myself in a coma once that Sonic talk started. So we'll wake back up. Division 2. Man,
Nice.
It's interesting how they kind of took like the exact opposite road of Anthem on every single thing and made a really fun game that's the exact opposite of Anthem. I like it. It's a little bit, bullet spongy. The enemies still take a ton of damage to take down, but they've kind of tried to work a way around it by basically giving you kind of like close to like Destiny, kind of like special abilities and classifications and stuff. It's pretty
It's
interesting.
more like
but
RPG-ish then, right? Where you're
there's
cooldowns.
Yeah, there's a skill tree now, and they're kind of based around 3 different weapon classes. So like you've got a grenade launcher, you got like a crossbow that kind of sets traps and stuff like that, and then you've got like a high-powered sniper rifle. But it all kind of plays similar-ish. And I think what everybody's ending up doing is just grinding enough points to have all 3 of them maxed out in the long run. But it's really fun if you like those kind of games. I'm just got a couple hours into it. I've hit what they've got kind of as the soft cap right now at 450. So playing with a bunch of my buddies, just checking it out. But I don't know. It hasn't grabbed me in the way that like a lot of other games have. It's just kind of another looter shooter. But I kind of feel like Anthem fatigue is really the reason to blame, and that Division itself is really good. It's just right now another
By comparison, it just it sticks out as being better. It's weird because what I've been hearing, the scuttlebutt is that Anthem actually did okay at retail, and Division 2 has not been doing as well. It feels like people got the looter shooter fatigue from the worst shooter and then don't want to buy the better one.
I think that's a very good guess. The other thing I'm thinking is I don't know if they're juicing those numbers as far as EA goes
might be
in
with, like subscriptions and shit.
That's what I was gonna say. I think if they're looking at, hey, everybody who subscribed for a $15 period in this time frame was buying it for Anthem, I don't know if I would really make that argument, but I don't know. I can't imagine it having anywhere near the draw. I've actually had talked to people now who have actually refunded Anthem successfully for various reasons, but I think Division's going to have a lot of staying power, and I think we're in this really weird era with Ubi games just in general, where I think you almost buy the game for the lifespan of the game, and if you get into it, you stick with it for 2-3 years, because people still stick with Siege and For Honor and all these other games that like when they came out they did okay. Yeah. I mean, like, For Honor just got like a new DLC and it looks great. I mean, the
Black Prior and shit, he's awesome.
Yeah. So I feel like when you're buying an Ubi game now, you're buying the lifespan of the game, and I think they've kind of realized that. So if they don't sell as much up front, that's okay. By the time year 1 or whatever you want to call it rolls through, either you're with it or you're not. But the people who seem to stay with Ubi games really enjoy them. I mean, they're still putting out content for lots and lots of their games that maybe didn't have great launches, but if you stuck with it, you're probably a happy player.
Siege and stuff like that.
Yeah, it wasn't Siege kind of a commercial failure at launch, and now it's actually doing really well.
There was a good, probably a 6-month window last year where it was the #1 game on Steam. I mean, that's unforeseeable considering how that game launched. That's a really hardcore niche game. And that broke through a market that Lawbreakers didn't. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, I mean, what I think, I know we're gonna get a bit into this later, but like this whole like live service model, I don't think every company that touts it has been committed to it in the same way that Ubisoft is. Like, we all lament that Ubisoft has like moved away from like these 12-hour single player titles, but at the same time, I think they're the only company that has really legitimately gone all in on the whole live service thing and not just paid lip service to it. Like, they've legitimately tried to keep the games updated with fresh content, etc. And that's something that I don't like. EA just abandons games if they flop.
Single player shit is like that. Like, a new stuff just came out for Assassin's Creed last week.
Yeah. I think that they have roadmaps that are exciting and they stick with them. And I think if you're willing to put the effort into sticking with the game, I think it's rewarding. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, it makes, for me at least, buying a season pass for an Ubi game a no-brainer, So whenever I buy a Ubi game, it's a $100 purchase for me, but I can justify it and say, yeah, if I check back in this game in a year and they're still doing the content like they have been, I'm not going to feel like I wasted that money, I'm just going to feel like I put it on the back burner or whatever, and then come back into it.
I think they've built that trust in a way that, say, Bethesda or EA haven't.
Yeah, EA, it's not going to surprise me when they pull out of Anthem, to be honest with you. I mean, I know there's a lot of, press being spilled. Oh, that they're sticking with it. They're long-term, this and that. But I can't, I find it really hard to believe. I don't, the player circle, I run in is very Destiny / looter shooter, based. And it went from literally every one of my friends list playing Anthem to 0. I mean, if you look on Twitch streaming, their numbers for Anthem were below 1,000 all last week. That's
not good.
Yeah.
My guess is that this time last year will be the last new content for Anthem.
I'd agree. I think they probably are going to look at Fold and BioWare into some sort of, once they've got Dragon Age 4 kind of on the pathway to out the door, I think you're going to see a lot of exoduses of the larger names, the head writers, the people who want to work on RPGs, and then they'll just roll it into, making expansions for who knows whatever EA game, Apex Legend add-ons or whatever. But it's a sad end for, a good studio. I can't believe... it came down to this, but I can't tell you how bad that game is, and I'm not even saying just to hate or everything about it was wrong, and they're still making very big design decisions at high levels that is just fundamentally showing they don't understand the genre of the game, anything. So it's just gonna slowly spiral.
I'll repeat what I said about Anthem earlier. I think at just a fundamental mechanical level, it works, but the whole mission design is not at all engaging whatsoever.
Well, it's interesting when you look at it from the perspective of, they have a lot of psychiatrists or psychologists. I'm not sure which, but
psychiatrists are the medical people.
Yeah, the people who look into loot addiction and gameplay loops and feedbacks and stuff like that, and it feels like all those people got together and said, how could you make the most addictive game? And they made it Anthem. You know what I mean? It's such a withholding game. It feels like in Destiny and in Division, I feel like if I play another hour, there's a really good chance I'm going to get something cool for my character that's going to last me weeks, months, years. You know what I mean? It's going to be something cool but substantial. I never got that feeling in Anthem. So you just get the feeling, well, if I play for an hour, I get a chance to get something, but the odds are it's not even going to be any good for my character, but I still, it's hard to explain because it just tastes as an emotion. It doesn't feel good, but you're just
satisfying to play.
Right.
Yeah. And also my assumption is that when you're playing, say, Destiny or Division, that even when you have the lower quality gear, it's still enjoyable to play.
Yeah,
While
I would say, like, what I'll say, I think I'll sort of echo Kappa here is that, look, I have an unpopular opinion. I just don't like the gunplay in Destiny. But what I will say, Kappa's absolutely right in that you're always getting stuff that makes you feel like you didn't waste your time playing it.
right. And it's also the kind of stuff that you get where you feel like, okay, this can fundamentally change how I play the game, right? You can get an exotic for your warlock that makes your void class so much stronger and so much better. And even though you've been playing as a solar warlock for a week now, oh wow, this opens up a whole new avenue. I can play this game totally differently. I was playing a Colossus in Anthem, and I never felt like I would ever be anything other than a Colossus that, hides behind a shield. And, like you get a flamethrower, okay, cool, I can run in, then I can pop my shield, and I can set off my combos. But the game doesn't really reward it. It's just there's a primer and a detonator. That's it. You need to have one primer and one detonator. Does it matter if it's acid or fire or electrical? Not really. I mean, it doesn't change the way I play, but I just felt like when you get into a game like Division and Destiny, they put a lot more thought into what the player goes through and how to keep them coming along that doesn't feel cheap in a way that I think Division does it right, Destiny does it right, Anthem is just twisting in the wind. So good riddance to that game.
So, Wolfman, you were saying something about the loot in Destiny?
No,
Yeah.
I was basically just saying what Kappa said, that I assume that if you go through it, even if you don't, even on the lower quality stuff, it still feels good to play, and that while, like, in a bad game, like a bad looter shooter, you basically, all of the enjoyment is dependent on you having the higher gear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're just chasing a number rather than a play style, it's not as fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, if your goal is to get max power level or whatever you want to call it, it's not as fun as saying, okay, I really enjoy using sniper rifles, so I want to find a cool sniper rifle that fits my play style and maybe tweaks it a little bit, but I enjoy using it.
Yeah, I will say, like, when I was playing Destiny, I was actually switching out the kinds of weapons Destiny 2, I was actually switching out the kinds of weapons I was using. Like, okay, I'm going to use a shotgun here instead of a sniper rifle, that kind of thing. Whereas with Anthem, admittedly, I only played like an hour of Anthem versus like 5 hours of Destiny 2. But I never got the sense that I would ever switch from just, your regular semi-automatic rifle.
Yeah.
It just accomplishes everything you need it to. And there's no sense like, oh, I'm going to be in a tight corridor later, so I should bring a shotgun. Or I'm going to be sitting up on top of some giant tree and sniping people. Like that the level design does not encourage you to vary up your playstyle in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think that's getting back real quick to what you were saying about games as a service being a thing, right? Ubi, lots of people want this game as a service thing to take off, especially EA, because they have a subscription model they need to feed. But I think if a lot of games don't really look into how you keep the player engaged but having fun, you end up with stuff where it just feels like a dead end. Like, if you the best way I can describe it is every MMO, every online game has a treadmill, right? You get better gear so that you can do harder enemies, so that you can get better gear, right? And it's there, but once you see the treadmill, once you're like, oh, this doesn't matter, you know what I mean? That's when you start to get people drop out of the game. I really felt it when I used to play World of Warcraft a lot, right? Like, cool, I'm at the highest level I can be, but in 2 months when there's a new expansion, none of that's going to matter, right? So the treadmill becomes really, really apparent. So if you don't have that core fun gameplay to keep people in, they're going to go somewhere else, So like right now, people are complaining that, or they're saying that Anthem has core fun gameplay, but I don't agree. It's only got 3 strongholds that you do over and over and over and over again. That's not fun. At some point, that really wears people out. So even if you're getting better gear to do the same thing over and over, who cares?
I think this is kind of an issue with every game. Like, if your gameplay is dependent on acquiring something later, then it's. But I think it hurts the games. Like, this is like like for me, like I love Breath of the Wild, and I think it's basically got gameplay that's really strong, which means that no matter what level of skill you are or what level of gear you have, you kind of always feel like you can do something. And it's not really dependent as much on the gear you acquire. And I think really every game kind of needs to do this, but it hurts looter, I guess the looter shooter genre a lot more because it's all based around the assumption that you're constantly trying to grind specifically for new gear.
Right. And then can you get like the psychological, idea of, delayed gratification? If I put enough work in, am I going to get something long term versus cool, something shiny just dropped on the ground? What's more enjoyable for that one person? It depends.
You need to pull on both levers. Like you need to make sort of moment to moment and incremental improvements to the player's stats or gear or what have you. And then you also need to set these long-term goals. But if you just have the long-term goal, then people are going to get lost or frustrated on their way there. Yep. So you need to dole out both long-term and shorter-term smaller rewards. And I get the sense that Anthem doesn't really dole out the short-term rewards.
Right.
And like I said, it was fun in the hour I played it, but I can imagine getting bored of it if I were to do that without getting these short-term rewards for 3-4 hours. But yeah, that's just how I see the.
I think you're right on. I think you're an informed outsider in the whole
Yeah.
debacle.
Honestly, I think the biggest problem with Anthem is that the robots aren't fuckable at all.
No. Actually,
they'd overheat 2 seconds into it. You wouldn't be interested.
It overheats anytime you try to fucking fly it.
I know.
I want to be fucking Iron Man. I don't want Iron Man's suit doesn't overheat.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's a very weird. Actually, that is just something I find really weird because like the worlds are obviously really pretty and the skyboxes are really pretty, but like all the robots seem very generic.
Mm-hmm. And the world seems very dead. And, a lot of people have pointed this out, but Anthem created that world. They could have done anything they wanted with that world, right? I mean, it's this crazy world where, the Anthem is this, unfinished mechanism of creation that these people from the past set in motion, and it's doing all this crazy stuff to this planet. But, like, it never has any. It's just a boring sci-fi world. It might as well be Pandora. This might as well be an Avatar tie-in for all that. That world is unique, and then you counter out with Division, where it's a very meticulously designed Washington D.C. Down to the street level type game, but then they do so much with it that the world seems alive and different. And I can. Somebody said this about Anthem, and I think it's so true. If you showed me a screenshot of any location in Destiny, and probably Division 1, I can tell you exactly where that was, what level, what zone, probably what level your character is when you're doing it, stuff like that. You could show me a picture of Anthem, and I couldn't even tell you if it was from Anthem or not. I mean, like, there's everything there is so unmemorable, and it's a world that you created. You created it. You can do what you want with it,
For real, though, your comparison to Pandora is spot on, because I've seen screenshots from the Avatar movie tie-in video game, and it fucking just looks like that, but with a different field of view.
So the conclusion we've reached is that we need an Anthem theme park, and that's what will get the real value out of it.
Yes!
Yeah.
Is Avatar 2 still, like, coming out? Is that even a thing?
Yeah, there's promo screenshots, and it's the funniest shit in the world, because it looks like a Nickelodeon kids show. Like, all the actors in it are, maybe 10, 15, and it's, on this really cheap set, and it just looks cheap and nasty and awful, and I'm so excited for it.
All right.
There was a pretty funny, I don't know, man on the street late night things or something. Some late night guy did it, and they were asking people, "Hey, do you remember anything about Avatar? Like, can you literally?"
Can you name a character from Avatar?
Yeah.
I can do it.
Jake Sully.
What is it? The bad guy, Stephen Lang's character is named Quadrich, and I know that because
you got one letter off.
Oh, because that's makes him sound like a Metroid Prime 2 villain.
The only thing I can remember is Unobtainium, and that's the only thing I remember.
That's the shittiest name for anything ever.
It's just a dumb in joke. It's just
it's a joke.
It's for all the really hardcore sci-fi fans who are not the kind of people who are interested in Avatar.
Isn't that what the outside of the ship is made in the core? I'm pretty sure.
Yes, Unobtainium does come up in the core too. Yeah.
I've never even seen Avatar, but I know it has a character named Jake Sully and a character named Neytiri. And the only reason I've seen this is because I've seen the Funhouse parody gameplay videos of the Avatar movie video game. That's the only reason I know anything about Avatar.
Well, that's Avatar for you. And then Anthem too.
Anthem and Avatar.
It's basically the same thing, let's admit.
Yeah.
So before we move on to sort of the meat of this episode, I know, like, very briefly for a couple of minutes, we wanted to mention that there was a indie-focused Nintendo Direct this week, and, like, for me, the only, like, super notable announcement was that there's going to be a Zelda Crypt of the Necrodancer crossover.
Looks cool as shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you guys found interesting from there?
Well, the big thing. Sorry.
No, Ben. Or whatever.
The
Okay, I
big
guess
thing is that the opening trailer for a Cuphead port to Switch, like, it's not just that it unto itself is a cool thing because it's a game that, you know, it's very well optimized for Switch in terms of, like, design. I'm just I could just pick this up. I can play one boss battle for a few times, beat it, and then put it down. That's perfect. But it's a big deal because it was a massive fell swoop of rumors that had been swarming for a couple of months, all confirmed all at once, of Nintendo and Microsoft are getting closer together. There's going to be a bunch of Microsoft published games that are going to be published on the Switch in the next year. Game Pass and Xbox Live are going to be apps on the Switch eventually. Not yet, but like Xbox Live services on an individual level for each of those games that they publish will be available. Like, it's just a bunch of stuff all at once.
That's an interesting move for the industry.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of teaming up against PlayStation in a way.
I think it honestly makes sense. Like, Nintendo is by far the smallest of the three hardware publishers. They kind of need to be, like, keep more of their exclusives on their own, but Microsoft can kind of, like, basically take a loss on an Xbox to a certain extent.
Well,
that's what they do.
Microsoft, like, don't they lose money selling to Xbox and only make money on the game? So wouldn't they maybe making more money selling it on a Switch?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what
Microsoft confirmed, like, this was 100% Microsoft's idea. It wasn't even the suggestion of the studio MDHR. Like, Microsoft said to them, "You should do this." I think they leaped on the opportunity because it was exciting to be able to develop for a Nintendo console as an indie developer.
I think their angle on it is the Game Pass, right? I mean, if you can attach the Game Pass to Switch all of a sudden, and you can include that as a selling point, I mean, that's really easy money for Microsoft. Those games are already made; they're already out there. They don't need to pay, anything else into their development. It's just opening up.
Switch still.
Well, yeah.
It's going to be an effort for a bunch of them.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, because a lot of the Microsoft's Play stuff runs through emulation, the older stuff. So I don't know how that works. If it works with their streaming consoles, though, you could theoretically stream anything to a Switch, right? I mean, it'd be just like it's just like a tablet at that point.
Yeah.
So I mean, if Microsoft is really going full on with this streaming, they can make every Xbox streaming game available to Switch, to Android tablet. I don't think they do an iPad, but
Apple TV maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless. I don't think they do it with a Sony because of the differences in companies. Yeah. But if you're looking 2 years down the line, you can play Xbox games on everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly what Google is doing with the Stadia. Hey. Nice segue.
Nice segue.
Actually,
before we segue, can I go back? Because there was something I wanted to talk about the indies. Sorry to ruin the amazing segue.
Okay, let's ruin the segue.
The Crypt of the Necrodancer thing is way more exciting than the Microsoft stuff because what they're Crypt of the Necrodancer Zelda thing, that looks cool. But the fact that they're letting indies play with, like, their toys, basically, and they've said they want to do it more, means... We might actually get an F-Zero game or, like, a Star Fox game that isn't shit.
We did. It's called Starlink, Battle for Atlantis.
Ubisoft gave us that,
and it's worth noting, Nintendo was the one who approached, the company that makes Necrodancer, whose name is escaping me, because they initially came to Nintendo and basically said, "Oh, we'd like to do some Zelda-themed DLC," and Nintendo apparently just said, "No, instead we want you to make an actual sequel."
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you
Yeah,
think
it's true.
about maybe the best Switch launch game, that was Mario and Rabbids, right? And it was kind of the same thing there, where they basically told Ubi, "Hey, go out and make something fun with Mario." That seems weird to allow people to do, but I tell you, I played a lot of Switch games so far, and that was probably my favorite one.
Mario and Rabbids is really fucking good.
Yeah, it's
It
good.
is really
But, like,
good.
So
Yeah.
I follow a lot of like indie devs on Twitter, and like after that Nindies show, it was just all like, "Hey, fucking let me make Metroid," or like, "Let me." So I swear, I saw 100 tweets of like, "Let me like make a Waluigi dating sim."
Instead,
The thing about that is that like Nintendo's never going to stop being a somewhat restrained, somewhat conservative company. We know this. They have too much money at a given point not to try and hold on to it as much as possible and want to protect their brand and stuff. But you know the stakes for what protecting their brand is and making sure they make a profit has changed a lot in the last, well, really since the 21st century. But yeah, like Mario and Rabbids was a big step forward for lending their properties to developers, and this is another big step forward for that they've already said they want to keep pushing on.
Well, it's also, for the most part, all of these crossovers that they've been doing since 2014, like Pokken Tournament and Hyrule Warriors and the hilariously named Tokyo Mirage Sessions #FE, were like...
It's not a hashtag, it's a musical sharp sign.
Oh, Jesus.
It's Sharp FE.
Sharp FE.
Oh, well, now I'm going to have to rewrite something I'm writing. The
Still get called hashtag.
but the like all of those, for the most part, like the batting averages of those are very high.
Yes.
Yeah, they've all been great.
Yeah. So it's not like they're just doing it kind of indiscriminately.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, was that they're not just going to do this like haphazardly and randomly. They're going to be very precise with it.
The
Absolutely. Yeah.
My own takeaway from the Direct was that the game that looks most exciting to me is something called the Red Lantern, which is a weird-looking narrative survival game.
I saw Doug get hurt in that trailer, and I was immediately out.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a survival horror game about the Iditarod race in Alaska, which is it's a really cool to have an indie game based on real history and exploring that in that context. Your feelings,
but
about
also
the
dogs are going to die, and that's going to make me sad.
Yeah, that doesn't concern me personally. But...
apparently, there is one ending where you can get eaten by a squirrel.
You know what? I'm on board again. Let's roll with it. So let's move on and pretend that the segue that Bones did so well actually happened. So we're talking about Project Stadia, which is Google's newly announced video game streaming platform, and we don't have a lot of information about it so far. We know that it's going to basically support a range of devices, anything that can essentially just run Google Chrome. They've developed a controller alongside of it, a controller that interfaces directly with the server instead of through your device. And we don't know anything about pricing, release date. We know a couple of titles that will be on it, namely Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Doom Eternal. We know that Jade Raymond is heading up the development of first-party titles for it. And that's pretty much all we know about it so far.
We know it's doomed.
I mean, we know it has Doom. So, so you think it's doomed?
I mean,
oh god, yes. I live in Australia. Like,
oh yeah,
it's never gonna fucking work.
Yeah, I mean, this is even in like the most bandwidth heavy countries on like areas on Earth. Like, this is just not plausible to be streaming games like this. Like that's absurd.
So okay, let's back up a little bit. So we know that like when they did the beta for this, when they did it with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it worked like decently well for a lot of people. My concern is that we haven't reached critical mass of like the number of people for whom it will work decently well.
I also think they did the beta, right? Because that was like fucking like October last year or something, right? But the people that are signing up for a beta are going to be the people that already like have.
Yeah, I was in the beta.
Yeah, how did that go for you, Kappa?
I was in the beta. It was great. I tried it on like 5 different things, and the reason I think this is going to work when everybody else does it is because of what I saw with it. I don't know enough about the tech to really be smart with you know, about it. And I have a very good internet connection. Even though I live kind of in the middle of nowhere, I have a 300 meg connection, so plenty fast. But what I was able to see, there's something going on behind the scenes when you're playing the game that kind of like messes with the input enough where you don't feel the lag in a way. I don't know if it's like some kind of buffering thing where like you're actually playing something and you know, it's I don't know, but honestly, it felt about comparable to playing on any other console as far as input lag went. I played probably about 6 to 8 hours of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It was in 1080p, 60 frames in a Google Chrome browser window, which is about the weirdest feeling you'll ever get. Fired up Chrome to play, Odyssey. I tried it on my computer. I tried it on my wife's awful Asus Chromebook. And I tried it on my son's gaming PC, and all 3 were fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you guys watch the presentation. There's a lot of tech stuff in there. It's a boring ass presentation.
Yeah, because they're not trying to like sell it to consumers right now. It's like they're trying to sell developers on it.
And I think what I kind of gleaned from it is that they're doing something with the Google backbone. That is the backbone basically of the internet, along with AWS, right? And I guess Microsoft's Azure. So like you've basically got these 3 like server data, big whatever. And it sounds like what they're going to do is they're basically going to fast track Google Stadia along the Google backbone so that it's moving faster. And what they're saying is that it just needs to basically get from, those Google backbones to your house. They're calling it the last mile as fast as possible. They're pushing for 25 meg, I think, for 1080p, 60 FPS. And they're saying at about 4K, you're going to need about 30, which, I mean, I get everybody's got, different situations and stuff, but I mean, 25 doesn't seem insurmountable for most places.
It really does. I have one. Like, I have 1 megabyte per second internet. That's, like, Australia has bad internet.
Yeah, Rachel and I, Library Lass and I live in a city, and we have probably sub 100.
The only internet I can get in my apartment, and I live in a major city, is on paper 100 megabits per second. In practice, it ranges between 60 and 80. And that's and that works for most of what I need to do. I'm not confident it'll work for like 4K game streaming. I can see 720p 30 FPS kind of streaming. I think that'll work on my connection. Yeah, but I think 4K 60 is for people with like gigabit internet.
I'm just saying that that's the same standard as Netflix. So Netflix says if you want to stream 4K, 25 is what they say to stream 4K. So I don't think it's too far off in terms of what the rest of the internet is doing as far as streaming. I think it's a lot closer to streaming Netflix than people are thinking. I don't know what the controller does, stuff like that, obviously, but I mean, so if you're talking 25 to 30, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just from what I've talked to. We're not talking 1,000 or anything like that, but if you can stream 4K on Netflix, you can stream Assassin's Creed Odyssey, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, there's no way I can stream 4K Netflix.
So here's the thing. With a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the way the animations work, a little bit of input lag is harder to detect, right? Because it takes a while for your character to respond to like pushing up on the controller. It has to the character has to change their stance and then go about their motion. But with a game like Doom Eternal, which is a little more twitchy, I don't know how that's going to work.
They're pushing for fighting games on it, and that's the most hilarious shit in the world. Like,
yeah.
Like,
I lost their minds when there was 4 frames of input lag in Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, see, like fighting games, shooters, I don't know how well that's going to work. Action adventure games like Assassin's Creed, yeah, sure. I think that can work really well.
I mean, I'm thinking, going back to the Indie Direct, I'm thinking about trying to stream Cuphead. 60 FPS of Cuphead. I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah, that'd be
Digital
challenging.
Foundry released kind of their analysis of it from Odyssey. And then on a good connection, basically, input lag is 166 megaseconds, which is about comparable with most consoles, whereas PCs it's basically half that. And then John Carmack also pointed out that a lot of people these days are playing gaming consoles without game mode on their TVs, which is adding tons and tons of input lag. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to depend, but I in my mind, Google's saying, hey, hundreds of millions of people can do this. This isn't like a niche thing that, certain people are going to be able, and most people aren't. They're saying that, yeah, the tech is there right now for lots and lots of people to have this, streaming fine. I got to trust that they did their homework on that, So is it going to work for everybody? No. But
I mean,
if you can put a console on your laptop for next to nothing, then yeah, I think it's about to open up a lot of games to a lot of people, and I guess that's the part I'm more excited about because I already got my gaming PC, so
It's like I can see that. I mean, I gotta trust that Google does some market research.
I mean,
sometimes
they did for Glass.
Yeah, that was. But like at the same time, I get this sense that a lot of Silicon Valley based firms sort of have blinders on when it comes to the practical implementation of what they construct.
Yeah, talking about Google doing research, like how many failed Google big things have they launched? Like, what was that fucking Facebook thing called? Like
Google Plus.
Google Plus. Yeah, like they've launched and killed so many things because they realized as soon as it came out that no one wanted it.
Yeah,
I think so. My understanding is that a lot of that is internal politics at Google. Like, there's not a lot of support for projects that don't succeed amazingly right away, and then management gets bored of them and just kind of axes them. Whereas if Google were willing to invest in these projects, they could become something good. And that's what scares me more about Stadia than it not being like amazing at launch.
Yeah,
that it'll have a very small sort of clientele at first, and Google's expecting everybody to latch onto this with like Netflix numbers, and they're not going to get those numbers, and they're just going to axe it 2 years down the line. That's what I'm afraid of. Because I think there is enough people for it to be like a small thing to begin with, that it'll work, and then they can expand it as gigabit internet expands across the United States. But I don't think that Google as a company is the kind of company that will give enough time for Stadia to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my guess is that they probably announced it and pushed it out a little bit early because they've been spending a lot of time working on this, and Microsoft is definitely going to do something at this E3 that's going to be very similar, but Microsoft Azure servers, but probably with some kind of physical component / console as well. So, I mean...
Like, Microsoft will support a failing project to, like, their own detriment. Like, fucking how long was the Kinect supported for? We got a Kinect 2, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, though, I mean, because I think Microsoft is moving into that whole, like, Game Pass, territory. It'll be interesting if they can suck in some Nintendo games as well onto their Game Pass service, kind of a little reciprocalness of it. But I have a feeling that whatever Microsoft's xCloud thing is going to be like what's going to be the dominant standard. And then I feel like Amazon is probably going to be doing something as well with all their servers. There's no reason for them not to get in this market. I'd be willing to bet
Amazon tried, remember, and they failed miserably. My
guess on Sony is that they're going to build something in their TVs. And then I think the other person that's going to get in on this is probably going to be Facebook. Facebook has a gaming division, so it'll be interesting to see if that, if
Facebook wants to stream shit to your Oculus Rift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, shit! I forgot they own the Oculus, don't they?
Yeah. So I mean,
I mean, they haven't done jack with it really since buying it, but
I think we're going to go from having this being like a new thing to 5, 6, 7 tech companies jumping in on this, trying to stream all this, and I mean, it's definitely the future. Whoever figures it out first is going to be printing
this
money.
Is absolutely where the industry is inevitably headed. I don't think we're going to get there this year or next year, but talk to me 8 years from now, I think
Yeah.
we'll all be subscribed to some Netflix for gaming.
Yeah.
No,
There is
yeah,
also
probably.
a thing I've seen going around.
Regrettable.
Like lots of indie developers are really worried about this because what it will end up being is like a marketplace where your games only get to be sold if like Google or whatever approve it first.
Yeah.
Like it's very strong, like because like at the moment, like you get onto Steam and Steam is fucking awful. That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But like
I don't know. See how it's worse than Steam. I mean, or it could be.
But like, you
put your
can
game
buy
on
an indie game and support.
You can put your game on its own website. You can do whatever you want. But if this becomes a default way of playing games, and people don't have like a computer built to play games anymore, then you only can really play the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're limited to playing by Google's rules exclusively.
Yeah.
And
Right,
I don't.
and that
think...
means like I'm not going to go out and like buy, let's say, Hellblade, which is a game that requires sort of a beefy PC, unless Google is like, okay, we'll give you Hellblade royalties and we'll put you on our Stadia service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's. And as much as I distrust Steam, and by this point, kind of Valve is a curator in a way that kind of leads a community, I'm also kind of distrustful that Google is. You know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, that they.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine either they would cultivate the same kind of anything goes atmosphere that has been destructively unhelpful both for developers and for consumers, or they'd be so strict as to damage people's ability to actually have access to good games and for developers to be able to put out good games. Like
Yeah,
Oh my God, if
and
you really
yes.
want to see the anything goes attitude being horrifically destructive on Steam, there is a Twitter account that just reposts every single game that gets released on Steam,
Yeah.
and there is some shit.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, it's like a Nazi propaganda visual novel comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes so much for Valve to even consider stepping in. Like you have this rape day scandal that has been happening.
Yeah. So, like, okay, now
that
to like back this up a little bit, I think Wolf's right in that I trust Steam to like not revoke my license to a game I've already bought, but that's as far as I trust them.
Yeah, exactly.
And only because of the uproar there would be. I mean, it's I don't.
That's the one
Steam.
thing they've been good at is not taking away stuff you've already bought.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing I trust them to do.
Right.
But beyond that, if you want to take this anything goes approach, and find whatever take this anything goes approach, then you have to, I'm not going to articulate this very well, but let me try. If you're going to go with the anything goes approach, then you can't really reverse your decision arbitrarily, and they reserve the right to do it, but we know that anything goes doesn't really mean anything goes. Like, we're not stupid, and we know that they're going to step in if something is sufficiently controversial, so they've given themselves cover to do that, but then they're not going to.
But that's the problem. Like, they should be stepping in before there's the controversy, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So they step in arbitrarily, and they step in a way that has everything to do with how salient the controversy is.
Yes.
So there's lots of just utter shite that just stays on the surface because nobody realizes it exists. Mm-hmm. And they're profiting off that utter shite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but then
you know how I
nobody
feel about Steam, so I don't trust them any. I know you said you trust them, but I don't trust them any more than I do any other company at this point. They've burned through all my goodwill.
I trust them far less than I trust other companies.
Yeah. I would probably say yeah. I don't think they'll revoke licenses, but on the other hand, I don't think they give a shit what goes on their store anymore. I think they only give a shit when there's a controversy, you know. And I think the only thing that's making them act any different is the fact that companies are like, hey, look at this Epic Game Store, you know, and that's a whole nother can of worms. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, Yeah, I think what's scary to them is exclusivity going to Epic rather than them, you know? And nobody used to complain about games being Steam exclusives. I don't think I ever even heard that word before, you
Well,
know?
I
A
think-
Steam
I complained
exclusive.
loudly and a lot about Steam
Yeah.
exclusives.
I also
Yes.
That was like in the early days of Steam, right?
But that was also because a lot of those games were smaller productions that like didn't necessarily always have the ability to get on a console because they just didn't have the development power for it.
Yeah. No, there is more of a sustainable marketplace for a lot of really, really small and really cheap games to access
there isn't any
more
on
machines.
Steam.
That's why I
Yeah.
said-
So where are these smaller games going? They're like the really small ones are going to itch.io. The slightly bigger ones, they're all just porting to the PS4 or the Switch.
Yeah, and then you got a lot on GOG and those other, services out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not say that they were
Games
going
are
on
gonna,
Steam because they're not.
Survive till about July on Steam, and then
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry.
there's a lot of talk on like the indie dev scene and everything about like indie games are probably going to a lot of indie devs are going to survive till about July or so on Steam, and then they're just not going to be making money and just have to go somewhere or do something. Like it's fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's the so-called, I guess they call it the indie-pocalypse, is what I've been hearing it being called, because there's just too much saturation, and
It's not.
I don't think that-
so much. It's they changed their algorithms back in October to focus more on pushing AAA games, so they could compete with the people going exclusive on Epic, which means games that like had been seeing like steady profits and everything like for years had just like had an astronomical drop off overnight when they changed the algorithm, and they just suddenly stopped making any money altogether.
Yeah, those are the indies that can benefit from other things like, their company is kind of a name, or they have a name like Edmund McMillan or whatever. Even those ones are having their sales substantially affected just by Steam prioritizing what's most profitable to them.
yeah, it's a big mess, and I don't know that, game streaming is going to solve any of these problems.
I think that's kind of the takeaway myself. I'm not sure as much of Kappa or you, but certainly also Bones and Ben, is that like this main kind of publishing system we have now, or the biggest one, Steam, is terrible. It is awful in so many respects, and I think our concern is that like the Stadia or maybe another company's attempt at streaming will kind of have the same results as what we're seeing now, but just from like completely different reasons.
Yeah,
I think it'll just get there faster.
Yeah, I agree. It'll eventually everyone's gonna hit this like singular. Like, what's the difference between Hulu and Netflix right now? You know what I mean? It
Hulu
looks
has
maybe a little
ads
different,
and
but yeah,
the player sucks.
one has a lot more good shows.
Yeah.
Well,
Hulu
Netflix
does.
exists outside of Australia, so it's a pretty. I mean, America, like Hulu is American only, so
Hulu's in most countries at this point.
It's
not
not in
Australia.
Canada,
Oh.
so
Wait,
that's why it can
two
bite me.
countries, I'm pretty sure. Last time I checked,
It's in the US and the UK, and I don't know where else it is.
I understand it's been expanding a lot more recently, but maybe
It's
I was
still-
on that. Yeah, obviously it could be better.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. So there you go. We don't know how this is going to shake out. Like, we can prognosticate, but we're not, market research experts. I don't know. Maybe some of you actually do work in market research. I'm not sure.
get Pactor on the program, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that guy. Pactor is as wrong as often as he is right, but at least he's somewhat entertaining sometimes.
He'll admit it at least too when he is wrong, but he usually has a pretty good pulse on it.
Yeah. So we'll see where this all leads. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
Before we move on to the next topic, I just want to say that while we were talking, I was looking up the Twitter account Ben mentioned. I believe it's called Steam Releases, and we'll put that in the chat because I just now learned about something called Hentai Shooter 2 World Tour, which is in the genres of action and sexual content. Which is a genre, apparently.
Like,
I can think
whatever.
of
You
so
want
much
to
worse
release
than
some
that.
satirical big titty anime shooter game? Whatever, fine. I get that. I'm not gonna fault people for enjoying it, but at the same time, like, if it's not like even decently well made, then why does this have to be on Steam? Like, why can't this just be something that the dev releases out there on their own site? I mean, I know hosting's expensive or what have you, but like,
I mean, I don't have a
I
problem.
don't trust that game is worth playing.
Yeah, no, I
Or
don't.
not a Bitcoin miner.
I don't
Yeah, there
have
you
a-
go.
Yeah, I don't have a moral problem with that game, or at least with I guess the genre.
Like, it's
of
not
section.
fucking. It's all a fucking Nazi game.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
care about like your big titty anime shooter.
Yeah.
It's just, well,
Yeah, and
Steam wants to make money off of this, and they're
Yeah.
not gonna.
it's no, it's like it's completely unbelievably fucked up that like the curation is so like. Do we even know what gets rejected?
Nothing.
Like, basically nothing, unless it's like
Yeah,
Until
There have
there's
there have been multiple
controversy.
games that have shipped without
without the EXE.
without like they will crash your game and there's nothing even playable on them, and and Steam has to be made aware that that's happening before they do anything about it. They didn't like look at it before it was launched.
Games have released without executables. That's
Yes.
how shitty it is.
Yeah, that's the phrase that I was looking for. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Anyway, so moving on to the other topic we wanted to discuss, which is influencers in the video game space, specifically EA's Game Changers program, which is actually, I didn't know this, had been operating since last year. I kind of missed the announcement of it. But it's been in the news recently for a reason that I'll get to. Just to explain what it's about, it's essentially EA effectively kind of contracts with streamers and content creators to like show off EA games on their channels, and the way that it benefits the streamers is that they get access to exclusive game capture, and they also get to provide feedback to EA on games before they're released. Now, the controversy that has come up is that one of the Sims influencers, one of the Sims game changers, had been accused of sexually harassing people, and EA was very slow to respond to this, and it took them a few months before they took action and like kicked the guy out of the program. So this sort of raises the issue of, like, these aren't really employees, these are sort of like contractors. You have some sort of contract between the game changer and EA. So they're not really getting vetted at the same level as an employee, and EA doesn't sort of have the same level of legal responsibility, but they're kind of taking that to mean that they don't have the same level of moral responsibility, and that's
I guess
presenting problems.
that's where this popped up for me was, in the lead up to Anthem, I started to see a lot of typically streamers and YouTubers from Destiny all of a sudden start putting out these Anthem videos, which makes sense, right? It's in the same thing. But they started to have like exclusive access and features and stuff, and they were obviously going places. And it made me think a long time ago, Ben Kuchera, I don't know if you guys know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He wrote an article, I think back when he was with Ars Technica, and it said, this is what happens when you go on these video game junkets. And it's like they fly you to Hawaii and they sit you in this room and they it's this whole experience designed for you to get hyped about their game. And so when I started hearing about these influencers, YouTubers and Twitch guys, getting the same treatment, getting flown out, going to Taiwan, going to, getting all these things, and then getting exclusive access of in this case, Anthem, for their channel, it's kind of becomes like a pay-to-play type thing, right? Like, the old radio scandal where, hey, I'll give you this song. If it's a hit, you're going to be the only radio station in town that gets to play it. It's kind of the same thing going on. And it feels like a way to circumvent the legitimate press, right? Who may or may not, have...
Oh, absolutely. That's what it's all about. They don't trust game journalists anymore.
Right. And to
game
build...
journalists have stopped playing ball with these junkets.
Right.
A lot of them don't send people out to these review events. And then when they do, they make a lot of disclosures. In this case, they're just making sort of the minimum legal bound of disclosure, which is just watermarking the video.
Yeah, and then there was a recent controversy where one guy basically said a bunch of negative stuff about Anthem with the EA Game Changers watermark on the video, which sent everybody into a tizzy, right? Because, okay, well, it looks like, hey, this video is sponsored by EA Game Changers, and I'm saying bad stuff about an EA game, so everybody lost their mind a little bit, right? But he went back and said, hey, it was more about the watermark and this and that. But I guess the issue I have with it is it feels like we've gotten to that point right now where they're just doing an end around and just basically getting past the game journalists, paying the influencers directly to build the hype, right, around their games. And they're doing it in kind of a fake way where they're controlling both the access to the game, because if you understand the way these guys make money, right, exclusive access is a big thing, right? If you're the first guy who comes out with, hey guys, this is how you get the best gun in Anthem. If you make that YouTube video, you're talking millions of views, right? If that game's a hit. So monetize that out, you're making money off it. So it pays for you to play ball. But in the same way, if you're a popular YouTuber, and they're paying you, Ninja got paid $1 million to play Apex Legends, but I'm sure some of these smaller guys are not just getting the junkets, they're also getting paid to play these games and to hype these games. And it all feels so shady when you've got this EA background of it where they're not quite employees but influencers, and we're paying them but we're not paying them.
There's the college basketball factor.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, by this point I think EA kind of has fully accepted what it kind of always was. Which is this unbelievably sleazy company that was kind of rightfully despised by a shockingly broad section of the entire video game community. Mm-hmm. Everyone, I think you can find a distrust of it in most corners, even corners that would distrust or despise each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like the one uniting opinion all across the games industry.
And I think by this point it's sort of just they don't really care, and to be honest, they don't really need to care because all those people who hate them still will buy Battlefront.
Right.
Whatever. And so I think that this is basically, it's not an attempt to make them more human. It's just an attempt to kind of
control the narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and as they started, there was a little bit of time where they started to kind of turn a corner, right? Where it kind of felt like they were like, okay, you know what, we're not going to be the evil empire anymore. We're going to start doing things like the Origin Access Pass and other things, a little more consumer friendly. But then this to me is kind of the worst. This is paid shills, right? This is the kind of thing that people on the internet have always said, hey, you're a paid shill. This is literally what they're doing now. They're basically paying people to go out there and hype their game. And now there's people who review games, so I'm not even gonna listen to their videos anymore. You know what I mean? They've proved that they can be bought, and that's a weird spot to be in. If you want to just show me, like guides or how-to videos, sure. But I'm not gonna listen to your reviews if you're saying, yeah, I can be bought for a trip to, New Zealand or wherever they've sent all these people. So. Yeah, I don't know.
I find the whole situation really weird because, so they're getting flown out and getting to all this exclusive access and all that kind of shit. But I have never been into shooters. That's never been my thing. I grew up in the fighting game community, all Street Fighter and all that shit, and that's been the way the fighting game community has worked forever. So it's there's all this big reaction of it's a controversy and everything, but street tests have always been a thing where they would invite people out and they'd be the big top name players and they'd get invited out to play the game, and then they'd give you that's just always been how fighting games have worked forever. I was just watching a video before we started of the Mortal Kombat event that they invited all the people out to and showed off the new characters, and it's just so I don't know. I come from this whole perspective of I didn't realize that wasn't how it worked for everyone else already.
Yeah.
I kind of already thought that was what was happening because that's what's been happening in my little corner of the fighting of the video game community. So it's I hadn't even heard of this thing until I was reading the breakdown Merve sent us all, and I'm just was reading it isn't that what everyone does?
I mean, this has existed forever. I'll be just in the interest of full disclosure. I was given a review copy for a game to review. I gave it a 3 out of 5. But it was only a few dollars anyway. So if you have a Wii U, might as well get block. It's weird, but not bad. I don't know.
If you have a Wii U, I think it's a big...
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
All
but,
7
like-
of the Wii U owners rush out to get it.
yeah, well, hey, it means that finally I am an influencer. But like, I mean, we might go back to like 2006, where there was an entire major controversy when a GameSpot reviewer got fired, in a way that seemed to, due to the fact that he gave a 6 out of 10 review to a terrible. Oh, it was also published by EA.
Yep, it was.
Kane and
It
Lynch.
was Kane and Lynch 2,
Yep.
right?
No, Kane and
Lynch
Lynch 1.
1.
Kane and Lynch 2 basically came out, I'm assuming because they put enough money into the first one that they were like, fuck it, we have to.
Oh,
Yeah.
remember
So
how
my
there
understanding
was going to be a
was...
Kane and Lynch movie and shit with Bruce Willis and everything?
Yeah.
You know what's so
They-
funny is like even like the frame of the website when this game came out, like the frame of the website was all
Yeah,
Kane
it
and
was
Lynch.
all the Kane and Lynch players, that's right.
Yeah.
It-
So it's... The weird thing is that, like, people complain about, like, how the games press is all bought and whatever. That's, like, the one big scandal there's been regarding,
Yeah.
like, the firewall breaking down between editorial and marketing. And, like, Jeff Gerstmann, you know, he left GameSpot, he founded Giant Bomb, like, that became a whole thing. But that's, like, the one time it's happened. And
Yeah.
generally the games press has been, contrary to its reputation, decently good at preventing that kind of stuff from happening.
90%
And that's
of
just
games press
not
aren't
happening in the
getting
YouTube
paid.
space. Sorry?
90% of the games press aren't getting paid. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
fucking know dudes that write, like, a bunch of, like, Australian, like, review sites and everything. They would fucking love to be bored. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask
hey,
Michael.
I'll give games 10 out of 10. I will sell out like a whore for you. But, like, they're doing it
Yeah.
for free. They don't get paid. Like, no one's buying them. Jesus.
And Wolfman, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that you would be bought, but I'm just saying that
I mean,
I'm sure you would love to be paid for the fact that you are an actual games journalist.
I would, yeah. But-
Yeah, it's a weird time though. I think all of us kind of that age where influencers are kind of just outside of what we're comfortable with. You know, I don't think that the average 20-year-old on Twitch knows anything more about games than I do, just straight up. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
the thing is, he's got an audience of a million people, you know, and they're watching him play whatever. And I think what people are saying is don't make games for them. Don't listen to them in a weird way that they focus development. But at the same time, you know, they want to get paid, so they're gonna hype if the money's there. I can't fault Ninja for taking $1 million to play
Yeah,
Apex
I'd take
Legends.
$2 million if someone wanted me to play a game.
Play one time. Yeah. So I mean, I guess what seems so weird to me and so slimy about EA Game Changers is the official nature of all of it. You know, I've assumed this has been happening
Sure.
for a long time, but
It definitely has. Like a few years ago, there was that controversy over Warner Brothers and Shadow of Mordor. I forget which
It
one.
was Mordor because War came out 2017.
Okay, yeah. So it must have been Shadow of Mordor, and apparently they hadn't disclosed that there are streamers who were like, or influencers who were like streaming the game, but hadn't disclosed that they had a deal with Warner Brothers, and that's what sort of touched off the whole FTC coming in and regulating the shit.
yeah. If you beat Anthem, sorry first of all, but also there's an entire section in the credits that says thank you to our EA Game Changers, and it lists out these people. You know what I mean? And it lists them by their Twitch or by their YouTube names, not their actual names. Do you know what I mean?
Hold on. Can I add some stuff here?
Sure.
Yeah, please.
I have two things I have to say about this. I'll try to get through it pretty quickly. First of all, so I'm 22 years old. I'm substantially younger than everyone else here. At least 5 years. In high school, I absolutely watched the infancy of the influencer stuff. I watched it developing. Like, I was watching, I really am not proud to admit this. I watched Game Grumps from the day it premiered in 2012.
See, Game Grumps is actually cool though.
Hold
so...
on. I'm getting to that. Well, one of them was a white nationalist when they started.
Okay. Oh, to watch the JonTron days
Yeah.
before they got the cool guy.
Yeah, no, I'm
to
talking
replace
about when they started. When they started. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, also, again, extremely not proud to admit this, but I'm going to provide it as first-hand experience. I also very briefly watched PewDiePie videos. Very briefly. Very briefly when he was.
That was in the days
there.
before he went all white nationalist, and he just used to scream rape jokes.
Yeah,
That was the difference.
He made a lot of horribly offensive jokes from the get-go, and that's why I stopped watching him very quickly. But I tried it because he did horror games, and that's my shtick. But anyway, my point was I was watching this stuff develop in real time. Like, I remember the first time Game Grumps started getting like sponsored videos featuring new games, like Shovel Knight when it had been released yet. They got to showcase it ahead of everyone else because of a thing, and they started getting celebrity guests and stuff. Like, I was watching that emergence in real time very briefly while I was still a teenager, and frankly, yeah, some of it is just conducive to just how the media industry works and how it's always going to be working, but some of it is legitimately like disturbing in its encroaching nature. And the other thing, which is much more positive that I have to provide on this, is that Nintendo had their own game creators program that was based on the concept of content creators, influencers on YouTube and Twitch playing their games and doing that, and all of this stuff that goes with that contractually. They had that from like 2015 to last year, and they just ended it, and they've changed their policy so that anyone on YouTube and Twitch, regardless of like level of high profile, anyone can use their games and show their content without being affected by litigation, because they know that they benefit from it as free advertising, and they would rather just allow that to happen openly without maintaining this specific infrastructure that prioritizes the high profile people and can get into this territory of these people are actually horrible.
Probably took them too long to get there.
Yeah, but the thing is, but they got there ahead of everyone else.
Also, unfortunately, this does not, Nintendo's change does not extend apparently to Game Freak, which was incredibly weirdly litigious regarding a huge amount of Pokemon Sword and Shield videos.
Yeah, for some reason the Pokemon Company is still really strict about that stuff in the way that the rest of Nintendo is not going to be going forward.
Yeah.
Because do you remember how that Nintendo thing started?
I don't because I wasn't paying attention at that particular moment.
It was when actually fighting games again. When the Evo tournaments first started trying to stream Smash Brothers Melee, like that was before they'd had that thing started, and fucking Nintendo just shut down it altogether. Like, they let them play Melee at the tournament, but wouldn't let any of it go online, and like people lost their shit, and it was like
understandably,
like because Melee now is like the biggest. Well, it isn't now because they fucking got kicked out of Evo, thank God. It was like the biggest, like it was the most popular one of all the games they played, and it was every year they played it, but Nintendo wouldn't let them do it, and I think it was because it was the year that Smash
4. It was the year after Smash 4 came out, so it was the first Evo was available to play.
Yeah, and everyone, and like they would only let them show. No, they wouldn't even let them. It was it was a while ago now, but like Nintendo was like fucking weird about letting anyone see Smash Brothers like at Evo, and
there's another. This isn't actually related to that, but there's another weird Smash Brothers like Evo litigious controversy, which is hilarious. Which is that if you play as Ness or Lucas from the Earthbound games, if they win, you can't actually show them on the victory pose because the actual music isn't owned by Nintendo. It's owned by Shigesato Itoi and the various companies that helped develop those games. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
do you reckon they made the low tier on purpose for that?
No, I just
see. This is why all this litigation stuff is so tiring.
Yeah.
Like, and you have video games are made from components of like 18 different companies. But sort of so to bring this back to influencers, Kappa, you're mentioning something about the. Sorry, I forgot what exactly you were saying, but you were mentioning something.
Great segue.
Yeah, I need to work on my segue game. I need to learn from Bones about how to do this.
Right.
But yeah, like one thing I wanted to mention is like we were mentioning about how there's this sort of the idea that these companies are sort of less legally liable when they have like these contract marketers instead of, you know, actual employees of the company. And like that's sort of how they shield themselves, right? Like if a game changer forgets to make the proper disclosure, that's not EA that gets in trouble with the FTC, that's the game changer.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Or if a game changer is accused of something serious like sexual harassment, EA sort of washes their hands clean and doesn't really deal with the situation until it reaches a head. And that's sort of what kind of bugs me about. I mean, you know, I have very strong opinions on like the gig economy and all that, but like what sort of bugs me at the end of the day about these kinds of programs is that the companies that sort of contract out their marketing aren't really willing to take ownership of it.
Yeah.
So, like, if anything controversial happens or these videos showcase something less than savory, then they sort of wash their hands clean of it. And, you know, if they overhype a game, then that's on the game changers. It wasn't us who overhyped it or said something false. It was this guy who said it. And that's what kind of bothers me about this, is that it's companies not taking ownership of their marketing and just sort of letting it go on this runaway train.
That's kind of what I think I was getting at with when I was saying like, the formalization of this program, I think is where the level of it. I don't know if it's them trying to get ahead of controversy or them trying to separate themselves from controversy, but basically just saying, look, you know, we're paying these guys more or less to give us reviews. If they give us a bad review, we're going to cut them off the program. If they give us good reviews, we'll keep feeding them content. And, you know, I don't think the average person is going to pay attention to that. But when it starts to be something that becomes more and more common, I mean, how many more game changers are going to be out there to the point where now it's just like it was in the battle days of paid game journalism, right? Now we're just going to have, you know, paid content creator journalism, but that's all we're going to have to go off of when it comes to games these days.
Every YouTuber is just going to be Game Informer.
Right. Yeah.
And it's kind of already there.
They're all going to be playing the same games, and they're all going to give them high marks.
Yeah.
And like I get that the incentives are there for YouTubers to like sell out, but as Kappa pointed out, sure, EA is going to let maybe one or two negative videos slide for a game changer, but if you say like on 3 or 4 different videos that, you know, this game is not great, I have no confidence that EA will keep them in the program. I think EA is just going to kick them out,
right?
Because that becomes a marketer you can't trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the level of control is what they're looking for over these content creators, to the point where, hey, we're giving you what you want, which is, you know, content that you can do with whatever you want with it. Usually that's going to be, you know, be the first or whatever to get a video up about something. But then I think where it goes from there, though, is that EA basically saying, if you're not going to play ball, you're going to lose this content, and then you're going to end up being, you know, the one YouTuber who doesn't get this because we're paying off everybody else, right? And then that kind of creates a, well, if my channel is focused on looter shooters and I'm not going to get specific Anthem, you know, related content that everybody else is gonna, my channel is going to suffer. So now I want to play ball in a different way, right?
And you know, deciding these things according to your conscience does have these consequences,
right?
And everybody has a sellout price, and you know, some people will make decisions according to their conscience, but many won't.
Yeah.
And if you choose to go with your conscience, then you know, you might not be able to make a career out of it.
Right.
And even if you don't, you might not be able to make a career out of it, because as much as, you know, we notice how like the depressing number of YouTube streamers that have like 25 million viewers, like the truth is the vast majority of them aren't like that, and you're like it's even like it's
yeah.
a game system.
I'd
like
agree
we're just incentivizing people to become T. Martin and who's the other guy in that controversy?
The CS:GO skins thing.
Yeah, the CS:GO thing.
Yeah,
skins thing.
I don't think this is marketed at the Angry Joes or the Jim Sterlings or like the people who get those 25 million views per video. I mean, like I said, even when I started to notice this happening, it was more the medium-sized Destiny streamers and YouTubers that were getting tapped into it, and a couple of the other guys who were lore guys. And I don't fault them because they want
Pro
to get
Syndicate. That's his name. Sorry.
Yeah.
keep going.
But I think they're kind of highlighting those medium guys because those are the guys who don't have the access. They don't have the views. So, getting in on that ground level of a new game can be make or break for them. And that's a kind of fear that I think is kind of predatory in a way for EA to prey on, and, hey, give us good reviews and we're going to be the ones that are feeding you from here on out. Versus, I don't think the big guys care. I don't think they give a shit, to be honest with you, whether EA pays them or not, because they're getting their money from their monetization and their merch.
Jim Sterling is making high five figures on Patreon. It doesn't matter,
right?
To him.
But getting from one leap to another is kind of hard, And I think what I hate most about game changers and stuff like this is, a lot of these guys, they're 20-year-old guys, and girls right out of college, just trying to, make a way in this kind of new weird world. And, they think they're doing good with a channel that's getting, 50,000 views per video. And then this, guy comes along who's basically, hey, I'm gonna recruit you to give my games good reviews. It just feels scummy. It feels like we're using people, in a really crappy way, and I hate seeing it.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on influencers?
One minor one, Bones. This will be cold comfort, given that they are not, to my knowledge. No, actually, it's not gonna be that. No, it'll be bad. But so for whatever it's worth, when I was a teenager, they weren't PewDiePie. And they weren't JonTron, but I did when I was starting to get into the Internet of Gaming, I did watch the Angry Video Game Nerd and the Nostalgia Critic, both of whom are pretty awful. And this happened. I think not necessarily all of us, but we've all, I think, gotten at one point when in this as like fans of like the games industry or the gaming world, as my mom calls it. We find someone who we kind of like, and then it turns out, oh shit, they suck. And
I mean, that happens in like all sorts of media all across the board. Like, how many people say like Michael Jackson's music and then found out awful things about him? That's sort of just, it's part of the reality of existing in a world where horrible people will occasionally do something that is enjoyable.
I just think the internet culture aspect of it, of personas delivering like content, like usually discussing other media, and then they either abuse their power or are otherwise just ideologically horrifying, is kind of a distinct thing. But I mean, it's a sister thing, basically.
I can see that. It's sort of like, I mean, this is going to sound a little strange. Like, if it's like art, that's something you sort of like, I don't want to say passively consume, but you don't necessarily need to be like aligned in the same headspace as the creator to appreciate it. But if you're watching or consuming criticism, that's sort of aligning you with that person's headspace, and so it feels a little more personal when they turn out to be scummy.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense.
That's exactly what I was trying to say, and like that. Admittedly, that's an experience that's affected me on different spheres throughout my life. You can talk about Nostalgia Critic and like YouTubers, but even then, before those fucking guys, there was Gene Siskel, who was a misogynist jackass who encouraged his fans to harass a middle-aged woman for starring in Friday the 13th. And I fucking loved at the movies, and it sucked to realize that that guy was the worst. I mean, I didn't even like him that much.
I used to read say like Devin Faraci's criticism.
Oh god, yeah.
I mean, and then I don't want to sound like I don't want to sound like an I told you so, but I kind of found out about his scumminess a little bit before the rest of the internet did.
Yeah.
And that was an awkward couple of years where I was like, this guy's a scumbag, and kind of screaming into the
that's
void.
never a fun position.
I think part of the thing is that the distinction between like some of the abusers and scumbags and others is that on YouTube, almost all of them are kind of open about that. Like the reason we know JonTron is a white supremacist is that he told us he was a white supremacist.
Yeah, John Jafari and PewDiePie are not subtle neo-Nazis.
Yeah, like it's it's and I think that's kind of it. Is like it's it's I don't know.
They found that they have a community that they can market that towards, and they found there are a lot of people who are like, they'll say, and I take them with their word when they say that they're like quote unquote apolitical and they don't care about the political messages that are being broadcast to other fora. Fine, but there is an audience for them, and that's what they're capitalizing on. That's a little bit disconcerting to find out, but I mean that's the unfortunate reality that we live in. That's kind of a sad note on which to end this podcast.
I think it's certainly spiritually true to our other discussions, though.
Yeah, I mean, this was not a outside
you assigned us Stadia and content creators, man.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is not going to be this is never going to turn out to be a happy podcast.
You could have given us like the Sonic movie or something.
Oh, we could talk about that for a bit.
I cannot wait to talk about the Sonic movie.
Let's not talk about that.
The trailer will probably be out before the next one is recorded, so we could do it then.
Oh yeah, when that comes out, we will have fun dissecting it.
Yeah, I'm gonna demand...
Wolfman, I will have a dedicated 2.5-hour rabbit screening, just showing the trailer repeatedly and then talking about the franchise.
Oh, you'll like freeze frame that shit and like go frame by frame and analyze how like fucked up his legs are.
It'll be just like the way that people like analyze the Detective Pikachu trailer to find all the different Pokemon and like small like Easter eggs, except it'll just be like, this is where Sonic's leg shouldn't be, but it's here.
That's as good a video as any. So on that note, I'd like to say if you'd like to keep up to date with the podcast, you can follow us on our website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com. We post each episode along with a link dump that has fact checks for some of the stuff we said, as well as link to Twitter accounts of all the Steam games that are released on the service. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play Music. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. And also make sure that you check out the community that spawned this podcast at theavocado.org. There's a hyphen between the and avocado. If you don't put the hyphen, that actually takes you to a non-existent website that we could have bought the URL for, but we didn't for some reason. So we fucked that up. Sorry, guys. You have to type the hyphen.
Merve, the mods are going to come down on your ass now.
Yeah.
I am a mod.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
It'll be so...
I'm going to have to come down on my own ass.
No, they're going to fucking Ides of March you.
Oh, I was thinking it was going to
probably deserve it. I've said a lot of stupid shit.
I was thinking...
Sorry, you're saying something, Wolfman?
Yeah, I was going to say I thought it would be more like, say, one of the bloated superhero comic crossovers. Are you going to be on Team Alger or Team Merve?
I'm going to be on Team no hyphen, whatever side that ends up being.
Yeah.
But do type the hyphen in the URL so you can go to our wonderful website and check out articles about video games and other media that aren't video games.
Yeah. It's a loving and inviting... Oh, sorry, Ben.
Video games and the lesser media.
Shots fucking fired. All right. Thank you all for being on the podcast, and we will see you at some point in the future for more discussion of... I was going to say PewDiePie, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. More discussion of things that aren't PewDiePie. Thank you all for being here, and see you later.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good night, y'all.
An absolute pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah.